This topic is such an interesting one. On one hand, we've got the issue where, temples are places where we all respect and we go and pay our respects, and by just the very nature of the institution, they rely on donations. And so very many temples on the one hand don't have enough income to keep them running, because the temple does need people, it needs things to keep it running. And if it doesn't have an income, it can't run. And on the other hand, we've got those temples which have got way more income than is enough for running their premises. And we don't know what is how that wealth is controlled or managed in a proper way. So there's like two sides of the coin, and then we've got on top of it layered the element of the government controlling the temples, and we've got another new movement which is called the Free the Temples movement. So there's all these elements which make this such an interesting topic. And although today is the new year, it is supposed to be a time of rejoicing, celebrating, and looking forward to the year ahead. We have rose to the news of a stampede at Mata Vaishno Devi Shrine in Jammu and Kashmir, where 12 people sadly have lost their lives, and we understand about 14 are injured. So, temples attract huge crowds of devotees. And so I think maybe this is a good topic to explore. And I'll hand over to you, Manish Bhai, to start off the discussions on this. I'll jump in with some questions as well later on from the viewers.
Sure, thank you, Vijay. Nishit Bhai. Vijay Bhai, your take on this news about Vaishno Devi Temple and the stampede there, please.
Oh, it's really, really sad. I mean, I think that I heard that the news that 12 people have so far passed away and I think 15 injured. I mean, I don't know what to say. I mean, can you imagine going to a temple to pay your respects and then you face a situation where suddenly, life is taken away? I think they really need to investigate and find out why this happened. But as Nishit Bhai and you mentioned that some of these temples are government controlled, I wonder sometimes, do authorities really care? Because I've been to some temples which are privately run as well in India, and they've got huge, body of volunteers who are dedicated and love. They've got so much love for the temple, and part of a dedicated committee who will control and do all this, proper arrangements for everybody, so everything is done peacefully and in a safe manner. So something has gone wrong here, and I think they need to work out why that happened, because it's really sad that in a place of worship, the word of God, where you should have all these rules in place, and you should have a dedicated team of people who love the deity, who love the temple, and would make sure that nothing of this should ever happen. Where are they? What is missing? I know it sounds a bit harsh from me, but really look at why this happened. Is it because there was, indifference, apathy? And why did it happen? There's some much more deeper questions here to look at. Very, very deep questions. Why did it even come to this situation in the first place? It's not good enough to say, oh, people are just crazy and they're running and they're just, acting, in like a mass crowd and things just happen. No, not a good answer. Something has to be looked into why this happened and why were the safety, kind of safety elements not in place. So I personally, as Nishit Bhai mentioned, it's a very complex question. There's some fundamental restructuring required of Indian temples. So they're run in a way by people who love the temples, people who understand the meaning of temples. And that I think is sorely missing in India today. It's coming slowly, but it's still not up to speed. But in partly it makes me angry as well that how can this happen in the temple? But it's happened already now. Let's see. I don't have all the news yet. Let's see what the results come out. Investigation finds out and why this happened. But we'll find out. Chita Ben.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really unfortunate event, and it has happened in the past, and we hope that this kind of thing doesn't happen anymore. And I think probably better sort of temple administration, better organisation, better people management can hopefully prevent this kind of thing from happening. But it also makes you wonder, is temple really a beneficial thing for society, or is it something that's of hindrance? And as Dad was saying in the video, it's very much an ethical dilemma, because you know, without having the Temple of Belur this Hindu academy would not be here right now. So in that sense, this kind of institution has served a great purpose, but also we have to think about all the divisions and barriers that can take place as a result. And unfortunately, with this, you know, in the sort of history of India, we've had this issue with different castes, and it's nothing to do with the religion, and we've discussed that many times, but it's a social failing that has happened in India. And sometimes these temples were instruments for sort of showing that sort of discrepancy between people of higher rungs of society and lower rungs of society. So, you know, people on the lower rungs of society were discriminated against, and they were not allowed to go into these temples. So surely a place of spirituality should not be misused in a way that kind of excludes some people and only kind of has sort of elitist sort of vibe to it. So it's very much a very complex issue, and we hope that the Indian government will try and do something to resolve this issue in the future.
Sure. So news from the what we've seen in the news, there was some altercation between some young people, and that started a stampede. And because of the stampede, 12 people died and 14 people injured and in the hospital. So that's a very sad event. And but what we see, this has happened before as well in some other temples and other places. And a proper crowd management needs to be in place where this kind of large crowd is expected. Because even we see in London Underground, you see a large number of people, and they try to manage the crowd. They would have the gates and they would shut the gates. Okay, we got enough people in there. Now stop people coming or manage the crowd. The crowd management is a necessity, and we wonder whether any crowd management is being done, because that could solve the problem. Vijay Bhai, anything on that?
Oh, you're on mute.
Apologies, yeah, I was on mute. Yeah, so I think you're right, Manish, by that. By and large, I think the temple committees, I think some of the big temples in India, like the very big ones, I know they have some sort of crowd control in place. But as I mentioned earlier, I think I've actually one thing to mention interesting. I've seen some of the gurudwaras I visited in India, and they're so nicely managed. But you see, they are private. They're not run by the government. They're run by people who actually belong to that faith, and they love their faith, and they will make sure nothing is done to kind of malign or smear their faith. And they work really hard, and they're so immaculately run the way they do the langar, everything, and they do fantastic job. So I think the Indian temples are in a very awkward situation, because by and large today they're all government run, and this was done very early on. I think time of Jawaharlal Nehru, and Nehru said that these are seen as national kind of assets. They should run by the government. But let's face it, they're so miserable at that, because they're all run down now, most of the assets, except for the big ones which make money. All the others have been run down. The idea was that if the government funds these temples and keeps them up to speed, up to kind of at a good level, then people will come. But that's not happened now. And you see a lot of pilfering. Like I'll give you a good example. Recently in Kerala, I saw in the news about 2 months ago, the Guru Vayurappan temple, they make a lot of money, and the chief minister there borrowed a couple of crore rupees for his own personal charity fund. And somebody launched a public interest litigation against him, and the court said you have to pay him the money back. He hasn't paid it to date. He doesn't really care what the court says. But this is the idea. The money is so much pilfered. The other classic example is the one in Andhra Pradesh, the Tirupati Balaji. I think last year they made over $400 million, not rupees, but dollars. And they made millions of dollars in online puja. Forget, going to the temple online. But all that money is not used to maintain other temples in Andhra Pradesh. They all run down. And that money is pilfered, because I've also heard that so many people, devotees don't donate the land, the farmland to the temple. And that's been given at a very, very subsidized rates to churches and other people, because there's a lot of political, kind of people have got political bias, angles, and vote banks and all that stuff. So it's totally pilfered. Unfortunately, so far, no attempt has been made to release the temples from the hand from the government. I mean, there are very many interesting issues. One issue is that, because I talked to some gurus when I went to India, And part of the problem is that we got so many different gurus that they have to come with a working model on how do we use the assets from rich temples and manage the other temples as well. So they're all active and fulfill, as Sita mentioned, fulfill a good social function and help society at large. So once they get that model into place, which is something that Hindus themselves have to come up with, then we are in a good place to kind of what do you call to free them from government kind of hands. And that I think is sorely needed. And Tamil Nadu is a very big example. I know that in Tamil Nadu, there's so many other forces. Some I also heard, sorry to say that some missionary religions have been trying to stop the temples being freed up because it benefits them. So they actually, there's a lot of money changing hands to actually deliberately not free the temples from government hands. Because if the temples do well, then other missionaries lose out. So there's a lot of dynamics, a lot of pulls and tugs taking place here. And a lot of people are being prosecuted in court for trying to ask for freeing of the temples. So there's a lot of issues. The other interesting issue, another kind of spanner in the works is that, like if you look at Telangana, they're building a new temple. The government is building a new temple now, a Mahagudi temple, massive temple. Why? Because they want to make income. Because Hindus will give money. So it's seen as a business venture. So like even I think Char Dham in Uttaranchal is a big battle now because all the roads have been developed by the government and the Char Dham is now open. So they're expecting a huge increase in traffic of people visiting this Char Dham. So the government is saying, well, hold on a minute, we build all the infrastructure. We want to make the money. So the issue is, are these a government institution or are they private? But I think by and large, they should be private. I mean, I've heard some arguments on when I visited YouTube, people saying that, oh, it's unfair that Modi spent 500 crore rupees to build, the what do you call the Vishwanath corridor in Kashi. But the point is that the government has taken literally billions of dollars from temples and looted and pilfered it. So 500 crores is nothing to pay back to the Hindus to build these corridors, right? And I think the government owes Hindus a big, big debt here because they have pilfering this money. They better put some of the money back into the temples. At the same time, free them from the government hands, because you can't have in a secular country one law for one religion and one for the other religions. It doesn't work like that. There are some who say that all temples should come under government control. Then I disagree because I have seen that, like even the mosques which are run by the mosque committees, I forgot what they're called now, but they actually do a very good job because they have the love for the religion and they manage them in such a beautiful way. There's a direct, there's dedication there. But why would the government care? Because they are just running it as an institution for making money. Even I know the amount of money that's wasted and looted from all this is immense. So then something really needs to be fixed there. And Hindus need to get their act together because they need to come with a very good model where we have rich temples subsidizing, supporting the other temples. So everybody comes up. Because a village temple is, in my village, the temple is such a critical part of society. They arrange, dinners, they arrange charity work, they do Gaushala, all that stuff. Of course, ours is private run, but there are very many temples that need this help to start off. I think once they do that at a lower level, I think it'll enrich Hinduism and enrich society. But again, if Cass Sita mentioned that they should not become elitist and say, oh, this is my, once they start making money, then you have problems. Oh, no. This is only for us or our community or Yadav community or whatever, community. Then again, it becomes a problem. So I think you have laid out some fundamental rules on how temples should be governed. There are some temples in India as well. I accept that some are dedicated only to women worship, where men are forbidden. There's some for men only, which is forbidden. There's one-offs, and there should also be a clause for those as well, because we don't do the diversity either. We want to give this diversity as well. So a lot of issues to tackle. But I think by and large, I think there should be some serious effort being taken. I think it is being taken now, I heard. All the acharyas have come together and build a model on how to do this. Plus, of course, if you make this money, how do you help the poor? How do you have education? Because obviously government will always do a bad job because they take money as taxes, they waste for administration, they waste money for paying salaries to administrators. Eventually what goes back to society is very little. Whereas temples are dedicated volunteers who take very little or no money. So money goes back to the causes that you want to support. So all these things, I know it's taking place now. It's going to hopefully get, the quicker it's done, the better. so that at least we can revive Hinduism from a very grassroots level and bring it up again and kind of revive our civilization. But yeah, big task, lot of spanners in the works. I just hope we get there. But Sita,
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely amazing. And I think at the moment, temples are not sort of promoting as much as they can. There's two sort of central ideas, which, you know, Dad was going, that was his passion, which is this idea of religious pluralism, that, you know, there's so many different ways of making spiritual progress. Temples do kind of have, you know, images of all the various gods and goddesses, but they can make more of a thing of it, you know, promote the idea that it's not even just gods, you know, of Hinduism, which can be in a temple. Why not include other sort of faiths within it? Because we are truly interfaith, you know, we are truly integrating with different ways of making spiritual progress. And another thing which is happening to some extent in temples, but they can always do more, is promoting this idea of divinity within humanity, this spiritual humanism. God is not just, you know, in the form of a statue inside your temple. He is the living, breathing God outside your temple. So the more that can be done to promote both these ideas, and if temples can sort of galvanize these two ideas, they would be very, very powerful institutions which can really benefit humanity. And we've got a long way to go, and humanity is not perfect by any means, but we just try and develop systems which can help promote these wonderful ideas that we have lying latent within Hinduism.
Wonderful ideas there, Sita Ben. You talked about serving humanity and serving God. One thing that is said in India, big business is a God business. And now we say freeing temples from the government controls. And you might make some committee and some people, good-hearted people, may come into force. But what is to say that these people will not take advantage or see the kind of money that's changing hands and it will not corrupt them? And how do we make sure, because the kind of organization required, the kind of skill sets required to manage such a huge structure and organization, would these people have that sort of capability to do it? Vijay bhai.
You're on mute, Bridget.
thank you. That's a very valid question, Manisha. But as I said, I have seen some of the gurudwaras, how they run. Even some of the mosques run by the Waqf board in India, they're very pretty well run. So I think the thing is, they have a lot of checks and balances, which you need in place, no doubt. But it's a valid question. How do you know if the committee comes into power and then they start? But you know, the rules like they can only stay for 2 years, 3 years. All the books are audited. If you have all these rules in place, then I think it'll work pretty well. I think by and large, my view is that government should not really focus on running temples. Their job is to run a government, defense, education. These are the kind of big things they should be running. Especially India is secular state. You can't say secular in one place and it's okay, we'll run temples. This temple running thing, I think technically should be freed up. But yes, there should be good checks and balances. But from the experience I've seen from how the mosques are run in India, or even the churches are run in Gurdwaras, and even the Parsi places of worship, they run pretty well. But they have of course the checks and balances. So that has to be all in place, no doubt. But it'll be a new experience for Hindus to have the control. So there'll be quite a few mistakes happening before they get hang of it. Again, as I say, we have to also put down in place what they should be doing, like Sita mentioned. Make sure you promote the comprehensive Hinduism, make sure you support the poor, and all these activities should take place as well. So yeah, Sita Ben.
Yeah, it just really reminds me of something of Swami Vivekananda, which I read recently. Although, we've been talking about how powerful temples can be in sort of, reviving spirituality, becoming a focus point for religion and God and doing good work. The beauty about Hinduism is it is not reliant on temples. Even if all the temples in India crumbled, Hinduism would still be as strong. And that's the beauty of it. And maybe the time is coming where, people are not so interested in going to temples. They want to go out there and do something positive for the community, and they don't need the structure of a temple. Maybe times are changing. And that's the wonderful thing about Hinduism, is it's not dependent on temples and how they are run, although they can be a great sort of positive influence in the community.
Fantastic. What a lovely topic to explore today. And we are almost 30 minutes into the broadcast, so I'm going to wrap up on this topic for today. So first of all, a temple is a very subjective affair. You can't run you can't run a temple with mere employees. You need passion and you need devotion. Right now, the government is running the temples, and obviously somebody who has no feeling or vested interest in that temple may not be managing it in the best way. A temple is not a business, but it is the soul of the community, like Vijay Bhai said. A temple is the heart of the community, and it can only be managed with tremendous involvement and devotion. Now, we have the statistics. There are so many temples. Now, when I say temples, this whole story, how did it come about? So the British, when they were trying to rule in India, they were looking at mainly the south, because the temples in the south had the riches. The temples in the north did not have so many riches. And so they were trying to control the temple riches, and they passed a regulation so that they were managing the temple administration. And initially they did it very well, and it was quite nicely done. But then they faced some resistance from the Christian community back home, saying they're being seen as promoting Hinduism. And so then they moved it back to the temple people to manage their own running. And then eventually there was some government acts that were passed. And initially, I think it was for it was called the Madras Religious and Charitable Endowments Act in 1925. But that drew a lot of protests from Muslims and Christians. So it was redrafted to exclude them. It was applicable to Hindus only. And then it was called the Madras Hindu Religious Endowments Act. And then from there on, there was a little bit of changes. And in 1959, the Tamil Nadu Hindu Religious and Charitable Endowments Act was passed. And that was when the government was sort of taking over the running of the temples in the south. So, like we've said, many people have explained so far, there is a pro and a con. In one way, you've got the government supporting the temples that don't have the income. On the other hand, a large portion of the income that the wealthier temples get used on government projects that are not necessarily what people or the devotees of that temple have intended those funds to go towards. So, a very juicy topic to explore, and I'm sure maybe this is not the last time that we will have heard about this topic. So let's move on with the rest of the Q&A session. I will now head over to YouTube and Facebook and check what the questions people have been posting. Manish Bhai, back to you.
Thank you, Nisib Bhai. So we got a question from Ihsan Uddin on the same topic. He's saying, how can temple, a sacred place of worship, play its role in social harmony in a place with a diverse cultures and faiths? Sitaben?
Yeah, I mean, that's something I just mentioned earlier. Yes, yeah. I know. So, I mean, because Hinduism is so naturally pluralistic by nature, it's just the most natural thing for us to say. I mean, it's already pluralistic within the Hindu framework, as in many temples include so many different deities, so many different gods and goddesses, even though it's a Krishna temple, but there's like 50 other images of different gods and goddesses. It's already integrated within the system. However, why not integrate, other faiths? Why not introduce, an image of Buddha? Why not introduce some, Jain prophets into it? Why not put Jesus Christ in it? Whoever you'd like, which kind of shows that all of these are different pathways of making spiritual progress, and sort of acknowledging that it's not just within the Hindu fold, it's wider community as well. And India has got so many different communities, in its system. Why not use that as a tool for for social harmony, religious harmony? And it should be very different to say what happened in Ayodhya over about 15-20 years ago. This whole sort of turmoil around between and tussle between two different religions. If we can try and avoid that and use it to integrate and harmonize society, because it's latent already within Hindu philosophy. And we've had a recent prophet, Sri Ramakrishna, who was able to show the practicality of so many different religions being true. Why not use that and benefit humanity by showing that there are so many different ways. And the wonderful thing is, you don't even need to go to the temple in the first place. You know, that's the beauty of it. It's not like a hard and fast, you know, we crack the whip and you must go to the temple. I mean, my dad, for example, he honestly, he barely went to the temple. His work was with humanity. So you don't have to go to the temple even, but they can be a wonderful tool for promoting social harmony. Vijay bhai?
I think it's a very valid question. I must say in the UK, it's been a pretty good job because we have so many interfaith movements. I mean, I myself have visited at least quite a few mosques now. So I think all the places of worship are getting together and inviting people of different faiths to discuss issues and you discuss what we have as common as humanity, what we have in common. And that's a good thing. So I think this place of worship, yes, there can be a very good place of social harmony. I know there are some places that are elitist, but I think an effort needs to be made to get and remove. I think the biggest thing is misconceptions. Because if you do not visit another place of worship, you have misconceptions, which in most cases is not true, and they just carried on and spread. But if you sit together and discuss this misconception, then I think a lot of the the differences we have can be resolved and get a more social, more harmonious community. So yes, I think places of worship, not only temples, but all places of worship should be used to help the interfaith and get diverse cultures together and understand each other. Of course, we don't want one monoculture. That's just will be very sad society. But to understand the diversity and differences among cultures and discuss them openly. So they're all places of worship, not just temples, have a big role to play in that. So hopefully that will happen and continue to do so. Yeah.
Wonderful idea, Sitaben, Vijay bhai. So we're talking about pluralism being accepted and promoting multi-faith place of worship, a temple that's being used by people of many religions. Now, one thing you will have is crowd trouble if everybody's going there. that can be a big problem as well. But is it possible? Because not even, we on our channel, some Buddhists are saying, how can you say Buddha is incarnation of Vishnu? And there is so many disagreements. And can we have a place of worship that is accepted by all? Is it possible? Sitaben?
Well, as we sort of say, the more sort of progress you make on your own particular path, the greater affinity you will feel with those of other religions and other traditions, because you are all walking towards the same goal, essentially. And although your prescriptions are different, the way you describe God, or you may not have a God, you may not think of God with form, or whatever it is, and it all sounds very, very contradictory, but just focus on your path and just be open that other people are making their own journeys. And don't fight about it, just focus on your path. You will start feeling that great affinity because you're all essentially touching base with your true spiritual nature in very different ways, but it's the same underpinning there. So if we just carry on our pathway, try not to convert others or influence others in a negative way about the path that they are on. Just accept that, people are different, and that's the beauty of the world, is that everyone is different and we all have very, very different starting points. Just use a place like this to say, okay, I am very devoted to the Mother Goddess. I'm just going to focus that. But suppose there's a Shiva devotee or somebody from another religion there. Let them do their own thing. Let me do my own thing. But you will start feeling that harmony rather than start fighting over it. And it's just that wonderful example that Sri Ramakrishna showed is, you're there's loads of blind people who are sort of touching different parts of the elephant. And one says it's got a long, long trunk, and one says it's got big ears. And then you say, but yours sounds completely different to mine. It must be a completely different animal. But they're all sort of come together and make that one elephant. And they're just describing different aspects of the same thing. And that's really what these kinds of institutions can promote, is that just focus on your way and let him focus on his way. Don't fight about it. Just get to your center and let him get to his center, and you will find that harmony naturally. Vijay bhai? Oh, you're
Yeah, yes. I think Sita Ben, you covered pretty well. All I can add is that yes, you may have your own place of worship, but keep them open for others to visit and understand what you are doing and explain if they come. So don't make it so make it too exclusive. Then what happens is people say, they're like somebody separate. And as Jay Bam mentioned, we don't build temples to divide people. So you may have your own deities to worship, but always keep your place of worship open for all others to come and explore and understand. I think then we are on a kind of a good wicket, so to say. Yeah, and that's how we should be. I think. Yeah.
Wonderful. Answer there, Sita Ben Vijay Bhai. We got a comment from, there's a couple of questions here, which is quite interesting. Amcon, I'm not sure, or is it Macron, is saying, did Ramakrishna set up any temples that followed his own philosophy, or did he say to go to any and no, they are all the same? So that's Ramakrishna. But when we think about Ramakrishna, he started off in a temple as well. And that's where the whole thing started. But did he set up any of the temple and to promote his philosophy, or did he have any separate philosophy? Vijay Bhai?
I think Ramakrishna is very unique in that sense because he did not start his own philosophy. He did not start. That's why you don't have huge giant temples in his name. And I think they've got it right. What I like about Ramakrishna Mission, they have the Belur Mutt, and it's not as big as you think. Some of the temples are far, far grander, but they got the Belur Mutt to kind of have all the philosophy, all the works, the print, the material they have produced together. But by and large, they have centers all over India. They're small centers. But what they do have is amazing number of schools. The charity work they do, the work they do in the community. So I would say that by and large, maybe 95%, 90% is charity work, community, education. And that's where the strength lies, not in temples. But I think, again, Ramakrishna Mission never built his own, that I am, we know he's a self-realized person, but he never boasted about it. That's why he's not like, we don't see a huge temple in his name. And as Sita mentioned, perhaps that's the unique thing about him. And the way the world is moving forward, the world wants to do idea of, they want to see kind of unity in diversity. That's what the world wants to see now. If you talk to anybody, modern youth like my children, that's what they want to see. They don't want to see exclusive temples. So I think what's happened with Ramakrishna Mission set up, or Ramakrishna Paramahans set out, is going to be the biggest thing in the future. That's how I see it. His teachings of diversity, pluralism, and humanism, all this is what's going to really kind of exponentially grow in the future. I can see it happening now. It started slowly, but again, you see, it's something that is very unique. You don't see that. That's why I think it's very, very, Ramakrishna is very special in that sense. You don't see that, but I think he got it right at the right time. And let's see, and again, Swami Vivekananda, of course, carried on his work. And I think something that people really forget, I will really emphasize this point, the biggest charity movement in India are not otherwise really popular in the press, like the Mother Teresa movement or whatever charities of mission charity. It's a Ramakrishna Mission. It's just because they don't talk about it, people don't notice them. Even in Kutch, where I come from, they got a school in the remote areas where nobody will go and teach. They have a school running there, supporting the community. So they're doing tremendous work, and all that, the seeds of this has been sown by Ramakrishna Paramahans. And for that, I think India will never be that even now and in the future. We don't see it, but you will see it. I think in the next 50 years, you will see the amazing thing that Ramakrishna Paramahans has done. Asita Ben?
Yeah, I mean, Ramakrishna never set out to set up his own sectarian movement. Hinduism is already flooded with sectarian movements. What is the benefit of setting up another 100 million one? Doesn't make any difference. What it's really doing is integrating the very different strands of Hinduism, because before he came along, Hinduism appeared to be an extremely scattered enterprise. There was no sort of cohesion. There was no sort of linking up between these different paths. And although, everyone sort of vaguely accepted, oh, your path is fine and my path is fine, there was no real sort of integration, no real sort of experiential foundation to all of these different paths coming together. And that's really the purpose of Sri Ramakrishna. And the beauty of it is that it's not just within Hinduism, it extends to the greater humanity. So many different ways of making spiritual progress are proved through the life of Sri Ramakrishna. So he was not there to set up another sectarian movement. And even Swami Vivekananda, he detested the idea that people would sit down and worship him. His idea was, don't worship me, become better than me. And unfortunately, you know, Hindus are used to praying and worshipping. They do still worship Vivekananda and pray and bow down to him. But his philosophy was, no, do not do that. Do not bow down to me, become better than me. So the whole message is about empowering humanity, and that's really needed in society now. And although the Ramakrishna mission is still relatively unknown, I feel like a big sort of wave is coming because there is such a thirst for his message in the world at the moment. So I feel like that wave is on the way, and hopefully Hindu Academy can help with that wave.
Oh, that's so good to hear, Sitaben. Wonderful stuff. Today I went to 2 temples. So just tell you my story. And one of the temple, there was like 3-4 people only, and the priest was actually talking on phone, and there was a silence, keep silence sign. So this is not a way to be in the temple. But in the same temple, I went during Navratri, and there were some old ladies, like 20-30 old ladies got together, and they were doing garbas and singing garbas and enjoying themselves. It was, I felt like that place came alive. And a similar way, I went to another temple even today, and there the ladies were sitting and singing bhajans, and they were full of devotion. And I said, wow, this is a wonderful place. So, we see people do connect to the temples, and those who believe in devotion is the pathway. For them, temple is a kind of must, and that's how Hindus relate to it. But what I wanted to bring in is Ramakrishna mission a template that other temples should follow, and bring in this huge wave of charity with the temple body? That should be the focus there, and give it back to the community, whatever you get, so that you bring in the change in the whole society. What do you think, Sitaben?
Yes, of course. I mean, the more that can be done, the better. And this idea of looking after others, is that we've got such a beautiful explanation as to why we should even care about other people. It's not just because we're doing a business transaction just so we can get some good karma. It's essentially because we are all the same spirit that's living in you is living in me. And we don't have to be proud that, oh my goodness, I'm doing such great charitable work, because who are you to be proud to? It's spirit everywhere, spirit percolating everywhere. So you are essentially just helping yourself. And Hindu philosophy has this wonderful explanation as to why we should care for others. Why not use that and do it on a practical level? We've got the beautiful philosophy, and it's time to turn it into practice and sort of integrate this beautiful idea and tell other people that this is the reason why we love humanity. Is not because we want to show off that we're doing great work or to be proud of ourselves and put it on social media or whatever. It's because it's the most natural thing you can do, and it's not about being proud. It's just doing the most natural thing that there is. I suppose you see your child suffering out there, you're going to do something about it. It's the most natural thing. See all the children out there as your children. Do something for them, because that's the most natural thing you can do. Vijay Bhai?
Yeah, I think Sita, you have covered it pretty well. What I can Manish by is that yes, it's true that other temples should emulate. I think, but it's happening. I can see in my community as well. More schools are being built, more charity work is done, but not at the level of Ramakrishna Mission. But by and large, I think the society is moving towards that idea. So I'm hoping that in future temples will spend most of their money in uplifting the poor and giving them education so they can basically sustain themselves. So that is happening, but hopefully they will reach this level. But I think Ramakrishna is a best model for that kind of work. Yeah. Ishit bhai?
Wonderful. So, folks, thank you so very much for taking the time out on today, the New Year's Day. You could be doing so many things with your friends and family, but you chose to be with us. And I know from the comments, we've got people from the USA, we've got from Pakistan, from India, from South Africa, and so many other places joining us today. The world truly is a global village now. So one of the things that has come across today very clearly from the comments is, how do we get the youth of today to reconnect with Hinduism? It seems that there is a divide between the youngsters of today and traditional Hinduism in the way of rituals and temples and things like that. So I came across a little piece written online by somebody called Tushar Nadkar, and I thought that resonated very well. So I'm just going to share what he's written. He's talking about how today the youth and young adults who've left the temples believing that there is a divide between now and then. And so, Hinduism by a textbook definition is known in the West as a religion or a way of life, a set of religious beliefs. But in India, dharma is the preferred term, which is a little broader than the Western term of just religion. And as parents, we need to ask ourselves whether the children in the Western countries have access to deep-rooted knowledge of this dharma. What makes them distance from Hinduism? So some young Hindus say they are leaving Hinduism or the faith for science, believing that Hinduism is not compatible with what they're learning at high school or university level. If they met Jay-Bhai, they would know that that is not true at all. And religion and science can very, very well be compatible. But today's youth are vastly different, from the world of their parents just maybe 40, 50 years ago. The culture at large, fight for attention and affection, consumerism, materialism, all that. But I think as parents, what we need to offer the children are three quotients, which is intellectual, emotional, and importantly, spiritual, if you're going to impact the lives of young people. And so today, parents need to swiftly, categorically, and I think purposefully influence their faith, heart, and mind at a tender age, because children grow up very fast. The fact is, if you don't, somebody else will. So it's inevitable. The reasons young people are distanced are many and complex and varied. However, there is an emerging profile of one of the most, they like staying in touch. So many kids of today don't even like speaking on the phone. They just text or whatever is the current medium of choice of communication. And so if you're going to be connecting with the young people, you need to be in tune with what's the way they communicate. So get out of your comfort zone, learn to connect with the young people of our temple in that manner, so that your presence will be the accountability system they need. If you're not present in their lives, you can't hold them to account. Number three, let them know that we care. So do something special for the kids regularly, not something excessive, but do something nice for a young person, like giving a gift, sending a funny card, or even something small to assure them that you think of them often. If you don't have a connection with a child, how will you influence them? And then have them serve at various capacities in your local temples. Keep them involved in the worshiping experience. When I was much younger, I'm talking about maybe 7, 8, 9. From then on, I've been, my dad used to take me to the Jalaram temple every Thursday. And we used to be there for a couple of years during my, teenage years and onwards. And so that was where we started, and we got involved with that. And then place expectations on their lives. When young people have expectations, it helps them to build discipline. Eventually, they will learn that those expectations were in place because of love and grace with consistency and compassion. Make sure they volunteer time for community events. Give them time for their own cause. Sponsor a child to summer camp. Serve as a chaperone. Be a presence in their activities, not just somebody who's an older person. Be involved. Complement their efforts. I'll share your personal experiences with them. Be real and honest. Share life testimonies, your victories. They need hope of growing up and surviving in this challenging world. And then last, I would say, pray daily together. And this is the key to influence, and I think the key to being a successful parent in this continually changing world is having a mentor. If you are continuously pouring into your kid's life and nobody's pouring into you, sooner or later you're going to be empty. So whether you have a priest or an experienced leader or a friend from the temple or somebody else who also gives you a fresh perspective, also holds you accountable, prays for you, loves you, and inspires you to keep going, then you'll be fine. And that is, I think, a really good way of thinking of how you can get the youngsters involved in modern Hinduism as well. Of course, like we said, Hinduism is much more than just the personality-based side of things. There are many, many other ways to influence children, but this is certainly a great way to do it. That's me done. Thanks to Tushar Unadkat, who wrote the article. And I think for now, I'm just going to bring this to a close. And from us, the Hindu Academy team, to you all, thank you everybody for joining us today. We wish you all a healthy, safe, happy and prosperous new year 2022. And we appreciate your love and support over the past year. It means a lot to us. And we look forward to having a brilliant 2022 with you all ahead too. So bye-bye for now. And we look forward to seeing you next week on Saturday, 2 o'clock UK time again.